Here's a question.
Strong and brave, here to save the American way.
Captain America is not the first character that was created as war propaganda, but he is certainly the most enduring and widely known. Blindly patriotic Hitler puncher? He's been that. Anti-government dissident? He's been that too. Jingoistic France hater? Yes. But most often he has been the defender of the defenseless, regardless of what country they hail from. Because that's what America does, right? Right? Hugely popular during the war, Cap was revived in 1964 and has remained one of Marvel's most popular characters ever since. But he's not just any super person, he's Captain America. So how has his American-ness and the changing landscape of American culture influenced his many iterations over the years? Well, prepare to be unfrozen many times over. This is Loose Canon, Captain America. The superhero genre was only about 3 years old when Cap punched his way onto the scene. In 1941, Timely Comics released Captain America Comics #1, a full 9 months before the US even declared war, and it became very popular very quickly. Once the US did go to war, Captain America comics were sent in huge numbers to American troops overseas, and in contrast to the jaded troops we see in the 2011 film,
nice boots, Tinkerbell!
Captain America comics were actually super popular. They were cheap, easy to ship entertainment that also boosted morale, and, you know, were propaganda. Troops saw themselves in the stalwart, manly Cap, and the kids back home saw themselves in Bucky Barnes, Captain America's young ward sidekick. Captain America's enemies were usually fictionalized Nazi types, the Red Skull being the most popular and enduring. Steve Rogers, in contrast, is strong, pure, and masculine. He has no interest in the underlying cause of the conflicts. Like all comic heroes of the day, he just knows that punching faces will solve the problem forever. The German-Jewish defector scientist, originally Dr. Reinstein, a very thinly veiled allusion to the real story of Albert Einstein, leaves Germany and helps the US invent a super serum to create an army of super soldiers, but then he's killed by a Nazi assassin and Steve ends up the only one. But it's okay, because now we have Captain America. So, in a way, Steve Rogers is like the atomic bomb, you know, if we had made only one. And he became a popular franchise character. Normally this sort of Frankenstein story is a cautionary, don't play God kind of thing, but hey, it's war. Works out fine for Steve. Yeah, we got our own Ubermensch and he doesn't like you, Hitler. Cap didn't work out too well in the post-war context. Unlike Superman, who didn't have the very specific defeat Hitler reason for being, Captain America became a little lost. In the 1950s, the comics industry created the CCA as a monitoring agent at the height of the McCarthy era. This resulted in Cap being rebranded as a commie smasher. Because of course, this version did not do too well, and the comic folded in 1954. So that was that? Not quite.
When Captain America throws his mighty shield.
The company by 1964, known as Marvel Comics, decided, hey, let's bring Captain America back and make him part of the nascent Avengers. Captain Commie Smasher got retconned. See, the real Steve Rogers disappeared with Bucky Barnes in 1944. Neither of their bodies were found, both were presumed dead until the Avengers find him frozen in the North Atlantic. Cap also has one of the more homogenous origin stories, so strap in, we're about to see a lot of white dudes get thawed. It is here that Captain America finally has a defining character trait, you know, besides punching. Being the man out of time and reconciling his identity as an American icon with the constantly changing times. Since the 60s, Cap has been a mainstay of the Avengers as well as a star of his own title. In 1969, he partnered with Marvel's first African-American superhero, African-American. Black Panther is African. Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon. In fact, for most of the 70s, the book was rebranded as Captain America and the Falcon. And given that Vietnam just happened and we're not too, like, patriotic in the 70s, how did Cap spend his days back then? Why, helping the Falcon patrol Harlem and keeping the kids off the street, of course. Captain America and the Falcon dealt heavily with issues of race and class and race and race. It is fabulous. But being Captain America, his relationship with his country and his in-universe place as an American icon is a recurring theme. He sits Vietnam out altogether. After Watergate, Steve resigns as Captain America and becomes Nomad, the man without a country. It's actually a lot less emo than it sounds, and it didn't last terribly long. He resigned again during the Reagan administration because he won't go along with the government's idea of what he should be, since the government owns the rights to Captain America or something. His replacement embodied a very different American ideal. John Walker had a jingoistic attitude that reflected a large segment of American culture during the Reagan years. He's more of a Rambo than a Chris Evans. So when Steve does eventually reassume his alter ego, he decides that the Captain America identity is a symbol of America's ideals rather than its government. Who decides these ideals? Steve, and, you know, whoever is writing him. I'm just gonna skip talking about the 90s, except you should know that Cap was a werewolf at one point. He was a werewolf. Now let's talk about the adaptations.
He shook so many of them out of the trees that they coined a nickname for him. Captain America.
Captain America?
After the success of The Incredible Hulk and Wonder Woman, CBS thought, hey, who else can we make a superhero show out of? And what more obvious a choice to capture the late 70s disillusionment with the US and the economic ennui than Captain America?
American Ideal. It's a little tough to find these days, isn't it?
Not if you know where to look.
Right on.
CBS ended up commissioning 2 TV movies, and while the first one is considerably worse than the second, due mostly to the presence of slumming Christopher Lee in the sequel, they are both pretty bad.
How much more in game will there be?
Steve Rogers is played by former USC football player and future Big McLarge huge Reb Brown. He is not a soldier, nor does he aspire to be. In fact, I'm not sure what he is really, other than, like, you know, an easy rider.
Oh, I've been coming down the coast slow and easy, you know, kicking back.
Some science types want him to do the serum for some reason. He doesn't want to. Because
I just want to kick back and find out who I am. Hey, I don't need this.
Steve drives off a cliff early on, damaging only his shirt because the bad guys or something. The second time he drives off a cliff, turns out maybe it's gonna be a problem, and the scientists super serum him in order to save his life. So this version goes down as the only one where his injection is non-consensual. He eventually adopts the moniker Captain America because his father embodied the American ideal.
Sense that he believed in the American ideal and he tried to live it.
Really a lot, somehow, and people called him Captain America as a joke.
If I'm going to be Captain America, I want to be the same Captain America my father was, in every way. I don't just want to do the things he did. I want to look the way he did as well.
Because for reasons that I'm sure made sense at the time, CBS mandated that the film not be too close to the comics, and the result only resembles Captain America in that he's the product of a drug experiment, and that's pretty much it. And they are trying to make the Captain America thing work, and it just lands with an unimaginable thud.
It's perfect. Be Captain America, Steve. Jam Captain America down their throats.
The late 70s, being a time of disillusionment in the American dream and a crumbling economy, was not a great atmosphere for a Captain America TV show. But even that doesn't excuse the bewildering choices made for this sucker. Onward. From the director of Cyborg, Nemesis, and Cyborg Nemesis, and starring Matt Salinger of J.D. Salinger's Son fame, this starts not with the Captain's childhood backstory, but Red Skull's. Venite. This version didn't have a theatrical release because when the studio took a look at the finished product, it went, nope, we are not releasing that. Direct-to-video it is. But the first third does take place in the 40s, which looks an awful lot like the 80s. So after the super serum, he goes on his first mission and fails utterly and immediately. 50 years later, he gets unfrozen, and the president sends his chunk friend, played by Ned Beatty, instead of, you know, like Secret Service, military, sled dogs, anyone, to Alaska to get Steve after he has been unfrozen caveman lawyer. Seeing this guy's German and Japanese devices, he steals the guy's car.
Don't leave me out here!
Captain America! This is not the only time in the film he steals a car, by the by. Like the Red, Brown, and hell, even the 1944 serial version, the fact that he's Captain America is completely incidental. This guy is Captain America in that he is a xenophobic asshole who steals cars.
Don't leave me out here!
Next. The Ultimates was intended to be a more realistic and gritty reboot of the Marvel Universe. But this book was running alongside the likes of Grant Morrison's new X-Men, which was already plenty that. So in order to differentiate itself, the Ultimate Universe had to go really grimdark. Enter Mark Millar, patron saint of angry 13-year-old boys. Ultimate Captain America is less an extreme version and more a logical alternative. I say logical in that some people have argued, hey, wouldn't a guy from the 40s be kind of a jingoistic, belligerent prick? This version of Steve hangs out at the old folks' home because he can't relate to the modern folk. And you know what? Sure, why not? He also hits people while they're defenseless and starts fights when he's angry. He later murders his enemies after they are beaten and defenseless. Propping up the ugly post-9/11 attitude on countries that weren't wild about American foreign policy at the time, Ultimates also gives us probably the most infamous frame of all of the Captain America comics, and it gets a full page too, and then an entire panel in the following issue congratulating itself on what a funny joke that was. Personally, I don't think someone for whom fighting alongside the French resistance was only a few months ago to him would be towing the party line of freedom fries. But hey, it's not a completely unfair interpretation, and there is something interesting about the idea that Steve is genuinely unable to relate to anyone under the age of 80. Even so, it figures that this would be the only version who eventually becomes president. Next. Marvel's 1602 was a one-off miniseries written by Neil Gaiman, the basic thrust being that the events of the Marvel Universe took place 400 years earlier, and they centered around the Roanoke colony in Virginia. Blonde-haired, blue-eyed Steve Rogers is the Native American bodyguard to Virginia Dare, Rajhaz. See, it only made sense to me once I said it out loud. The Native American part is sort of hand-waved away with like, oh, some Welshman must have gotten fresh with one of the natives like 20, 30 years ago. But where all of the other characters are actually of their time, albeit like mutants, turns out that Rajhaz is the actual Captain America who was sent back in time from a future fascist America. And it's Steve's presence in the past that makes it so the heroes of his time appear 400 years earlier instead of as we know it. So he's gotta go back to the future or the universe will explode. Only, he doesn't want to go back, you guys. See, now that he's in the past, he can make it so all the American bad never happens, you know? We can circumvent the genocide of the natives, we can make it so slavery is never a thing, no McCarthyism, no Scientology, no Space Jam, but Nick Fury tricks him into going back, so no better future America for you, Cap. Nice try, though. Moving on. There are roughly 1 million Marvel cartoons from the last 15 years, and about half of them are Avengers type things, and Captain America at least cameos in all of them. Here are some. Ultimate Avengers, as implied by the title, is loosely based on the first Ultimates limited run. It is boring and unremarkable.
Hitler's dead!
Except for that.
Red Skull! I can't believe somebody found you and thawed you out.
The Superhero Squad show is the rare Marvel-based comedy, so the unfrozen caveman lawyer aspect is not only played up, it seems to be Captain America's main defining attribute.
karaoke. It's Japanese.
Yes, the Japanese are on our side now, and I bid them welcome.
Oh, he's so happy we're friends.
You're safe. You're with friends. What are you? Some kind of Hydra automaton? Listen.
Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes marks the first attempted tie-in with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is also unremarkable, but I do like how this show manages to cut Hitler out of World War II entirely. Apparently Hydra originated in a more, like, Russia-ly direction.
How does this contraption turn water into coffee? Is it coal power or is it a miracle?
Avengers Assemble, while not officially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe canon, like, say, Agent Carter, is based off the movie universe. So, with the exception of the Hulk, who is inexplicably articulate, and Falcon, who does not share his movie counterpart's backstory, these are basically kiddified versions of the movie characters. Anyway, moving on. Civil War may be the most well-known arc in the comics in which Captain America is a main player. Sadly. The basic premise is that the American government passes a Superhuman Registration Act. Iron Man supports it, Captain America opposes it, everyone is completely out of character to make the whole Civil War premise work, and it's terrible. So it's no real surprise that this, too, was written by odious fuckboy Mark Millar. Cap is portrayed as a short-sighted reactionary hothead. Meanwhile, Tony Stark and Reed Richards create some sort of, like, interdimensional space gulag where they keep unregistered super people in order to make Steve's extremes seem justified. Civil War ends when he just kind of gives up in issue 7 because fighting is bad and property damage, you guys. You know, because he couldn't deduce that superhero fights might cause collateral damage and cost innocent lives. Steve is a hot mess, but honestly the award for character assassination goes to poor Tony. Although the award for literal character assassination goes to Steve, as he gets assassinated at the end. Oh, he comes back. I don't want to discuss Civil War without mentioning also Ed Brubaker's excellent run on Captain America, which ran before, during, and after Civil War. Brubaker's run is where the Winter Soldier arc originated. Post-assassination, who but Bucky takes over the role of Captain America. And the series ties in a lot with Steve's past in World War II. There's even one scene where Cap praises the French and says, "It really galls me to hear my own people dismissing the French as cowards." Next. So speaking of military propaganda, but while this film didn't go down that road, it also doesn't shy away from Captain America's roots as propaganda either. This movie opts not to demonize Nazis. Instead, they are also almost completely omitted in favor of Hydra. Hang glider! Back to the American ideal, which is a very specific reason of why Steve wants to go to war in the first place.
Do you want to kill Nazis?
I don't want to kill anyone. I don't like bullies.
Tommy Lee Jones's character has more traditional ideas on power and masculinity and what makes a good soldier. In a way, he is describing OG Captain America from the 40s.
Hodge passed every test we gave him. He's big, he's fast, he obeys orders, he's a soldier.
He's a bully.
But in the end, the super soldier isn't an ultra-masculine jaw puncher, but a chaste, sensitive artist. First, Steve is intuitive, and then he is self-sacrificing.
Get away!
His lack of pomposity is what makes the movie work.
I had it!
Sorry!
That and Chris Evans, whose face has been kissed by the angels. Really perfect casting.
Nobody's perfect.
I beg to differ.
You know, the last time I was in Germany and saw a man standing above everybody else, we ended up disagreeing.
Where Captain America the First Avenger ends with Steve as unfrozen caveman lawyer, the Avengers Assemble in the UK for trademark reasons, serves as Steve's acclamation to the modern world.
I went under. The world was at war. I wake up, they say we won. They didn't say what we lost.
And while we're here, I'm gonna quickly touch on this thing that comes up sometimes. If Steve left the world in 1944, How is he not a huge fucking racist?
I was wrong, Director. The world hasn't changed a bit.
Some people really hate the idea of Steve even mucking up by saying something that would have been totally acceptable in the 40s but isn't anymore. You know, because Steve is just that intuitive. But even if he was the most egalitarian thing that ever lived, he'd probably say something well-meaning and inappropriate.
Oh, my lucky stars! A Negro!
But since the MCU is not our universe, and we've got some revisionist history going down therein because the Army in this World War II appears to be totally integrated, I'm going with different universe, different rules. Yes.
Word is you can find the cube.
Is that the only word on me?
Only word I care about.
Steve Rogers, perfect human. Steve's paradigm shift in this one is more in the subtext, which for a movie as full as this is a good thing. He's a fish out of water, but not obnoxiously so.
I do not understand.
I do.
I understood that reference.
He still talks like he's performing when his guard is up, and he calls Natasha ma'am all the time.
Captain Rogers.
Ma'am?
The closest we ever get to Steve Rogers not perfect human is when he repeatedly tries to goad Tony into putting on his Iron Man suit so they can punch it out like men.
Put on the suit. Let's go a few rounds.
Put on the suit, let's find out.
I'm not afraid to hit an old man. Put on the suit.
This is very unlike movie Steve, but then there's like an evil Loki thing in the room, so, you know, okay. His arc is basically, can he deal with fucking Tony Stark?
Wait, hold on. How is this now about me?
I'm sorry, isn't everything?
The modern Captain America stands in some contrast to movies like Man of Steel and Transformers, which got heavy subsidies from the American military and did require script approval from the government before they were allowed to receive these subsidies. Yes, this is still a thing. The Avengers rather famously sought and was denied the aforementioned DoD subsidy, and all of this stuff is off the books, so we may never know exactly what went down between Marvel and, you know, the government. But apparently the long and short of said denial was that the script wasn't propagandistic enough.
I recognize the council has made a decision, but given that it's a stupid-ass decision, I've elected to ignore it.
Funny that. Where Captain America the First Avenger is a coming-of-age war story, The Winter Soldier is more of a conspiracy thriller. At the start of the movie, Steve seems more comfortable with the unfrozen caveman lawyer thing. There are subtle changes in his language. For instance, he isn't calling Natasha ma'am all the time.
Where did Captain America learn how to steal a car?
I see what you did there, movie.
Don't leave me out here!
When he first meets Sam Wilson, he immediately rejects the idea of the good old days as being a better time.
You must miss the good old days, huh?
Things aren't so bad. Food's a lot better. We used to boil everything. No polio's good. Internet, so helpful.
He doesn't deify the whole greatest generation thing. Winter Soldier is also much more topical. It deals with themes of terrorism and government transparency. It is considerably less comic booky in tone than either of the first movie or the Avengers, and Steve's main internal conflict is that of serving the country he knows versus the changing nature of the country today.
And I thought I could throw myself back in and follow orders, serve. It's just not the same.
So the Captain America aspect is very front and center in the form of Steve's conflict. So the mid-movie reveal that almost all of the bad things that have happened in the world since World War II is because Hydra had infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D.
For 70 years, Hydra has been secretly feeding crisis.
It's lame. It's extremely lame. The word is lame.
Hydra created a world so chaotic that humanity is finally ready to sacrifice its freedom.
Like, the movie stops just short of implying that Hydra planned 9/11.
And when history did not cooperate, history was changed.
It's kind of nice to be able to stop blaming all of our problems on misfortune, bad people, and short-sighted international policy made in America's own self-interest and just say it's all Hydra's fault. Hang glider. Given that the film deals heavily with government surveillance and with releasing information, we've come to an interesting full circle. In the beginning, Cap was a blind patriot, punching for his country without question. Now he defends American ideals a la Edward Snowden. Captain America defends freedom by giving the world transparency. and by letting Bucky punch his face. Steve Rogers, perfect human. There's been some kerfluffle recently over the current run of all new Captain America and the fact that Captain America is now black. Like, it's just some random black dude. Like, world, it's Sam Wilson. It's the Falcon. He's been Steve's partner for decades. He was in the movie and everything.
You don't have to come with me.
I know. When do we start?
While character must have logical reason to be anything other than the default is a really lame cry for pushing back against more diverse characters, it is especially lame in this case. Steve is still there as a character, only now his super serum has worn off and he is aged, and Sam Wilson is in the early stages of figuring out what it means for him to be Captain America. And that is important because one thing that hasn't changed is American people's desire to see themselves in Cap. Even 70 years later, people still expect Cap to uphold what they see as American ideals. But that is part of why he is Steve Rogers' perfect human. People from all political walks of life can aspire to be compassionate, intuitive, trustworthy, adaptable, and just. And that is just the character that Captain America has evolved into. As long as Mark Millar isn't writing him. If it doesn't stand for France, what does A stand for? Perhaps it stands for Abstract Personifications of Unfathomable Beings, this being the theme chosen by my patrons on Patreon for the next episode. So, here are your 3 options. If it's not clear, the options are God, Satan, and death. So those are the choices. Here's the link for you to vote. The link is also below the video. If you like this show, please consider supporting it on Patreon, and I will announce the winner of this thing a couple of days on my Twitter, which is here. Every 5th video will be my choice, so the video after next is not going up for a vote. It will be my choice. Live in fear, people. Thank you for watching, and thank you for playing.
Mm-hmm.